An ICE agent slapped a Latino man in open court only to beg for mercy after discovering he was a decorated U.S. Navy SEAL. The county courthouse in Texas was buzzing with its usual mixture of chaos and tension. Lawyers shuffled through stacks of papers, bailiffs tried to keep order, and families sat nervously waiting for their loved ones' cases to be heard. In the middle of it all sat Alejandro Cruz, a 32-year-old Latino man with a calm, stoic demeanor. His short haircut and posture suggested military precision, but no one in the room knew his story yet. Alejandro wasn't in court for committing a crime. He had come as a witness in a deportation hearing, supporting a fellow Latino family whose father was facing removal. He wore a simple button-up shirt, his callous hands folded neatly in front of him. But his quiet presence seemed to irritate one person, Agent Rick Donovan, a veteran ICE officer with a reputation for being aggressive toward Latinos in court. From the moment Alejandro walked in, Donovan's eyes tracked him with disdain. One of them, Donovan muttered under his breath to a colleague, thinks he can just walk in here and act like he owns the place. The hearing began, but Donovan couldn't resist throwing verbal jabs. When Alejandro was called forward to testify on behalf of the family, Donovan cut in with sharp words. "You sure you even belong in this courtroom, buddy? Show me some ID before you start playing lawyer." Alejandro raised an eyebrow but remained calm. "I was subpoenaed as a witness, Agent. The court has my information." The judge banged his gavel lightly. "Agent Donovan, this is unnecessary. Please allow the witness to speak." But Donovan didn't stop. His voice grew louder, his tone sharper. He accused Alejandro of lying about his residency, insinuated he was undocumented, and mocked his accent. The gallery shifted uncomfortably, but Alejandro stayed composed. His training had taught him patience under pressure. Then it happened. As Alejandro calmly tried to explain his role in the case, Donovan lost control. In a flash of arrogance, he slapped Alejandro across the face, the sound echoing through the courtroom like a gunshot. The entire room gasped. The judge's jaw dropped. The family Alejandro had come to support cried out in horror. And Alejandro didn't flinch. His eyes narrowed, his body stiffened, but he did not retaliate. The bailiff rushed forward. "Agent Donovan, stand down." But Donovan sneered. What? He had it coming. These people think they're above the law. For the first time, Alejandro's calm broke. His voice dropped low, commanding, like thunder rolling before a storm. "You just made a mistake, Agent. A very big mistake." The courtroom froze. No one understood why Alejandro's tone carried such weight. No one except the judge, who looked closely at him, suddenly sensing this man was not ordinary. And so began the unraveling of Donovan's career, and the revelation of who Alejandro truly was. The judge immediately recessed the hearing, slamming his gavel down with fury. "This is outrageous. Bailiff, escort Agent Donovan out of this courtroom." Now, Donovan resisted, his arrogance unshaken. "I'm ICE. You can't touch me. I'm enforcing the law." But Alejandro stood, towering over Donovan despite not saying a word. The silence was more intimidating than any threat. With perfect composure, he turned to the judge. "Your Honor, may I speak openly before this court?" The judge, still furious, nodded. "Go ahead, Mr. Cruz." Alejandro reached into his pocket and pulled out a slim leather wallet. He unfolded it and laid it gently on the stand. The gold insignia gleamed under the fluorescent lights. United States Navy SEAL identification. The entire courtroom erupted in whispers. Donovan's smirk faltered. Alejandro's voice cut through the noise. "My name is Lieutenant Commander Alejandro Cruz. I served 12 years as a Navy SEAL, including combat deployments you will never hear about on the news. I have risked my life countless times for this country, this same country Agent Donovan claims I don't belong to." Gasps filled the room. The Latino family who had come to court looked at him with awe, tears welling in their eyes. Even the judge leaned back, stunned. "A Navy SEAL, here, as a witness." Alejandro nodded. I didn't come here for recognition. I came to help a family who needed a voice. I came in peace. But what I received was violence in a court of law, a place where justice is supposed to be blind. Donovan's face turned red, his arrogance crumbling. He stammered, He's lying. That's fake. He's just trying to play hero. But the bailiff had already verified Alejandro's credentials through the system. He turned to the judge. Your Honor, it's real. He's exactly who he says he is. The judge's expression hardened. He glared at Donovan. Agent Donovan, you assaulted a decorated U.S. Navy SEAL inside my courtroom. Do you have any idea what that means? You didn't just insult this man, you insulted every service member who ever wore the uniform. Alejandro looked Donovan in the eyes, calm but fierce. You judged me because of my skin color and my heritage. You saw me as less than you, but now you know who I am. Tell me, Agent, do you still think I don't belong here? Donovan, for the first time, had no words. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Agent Donovan's hands still trembled slightly, as if realizing too late the gravity of what he had done. The bailiff stood behind him, ready to restrain him if necessary. The judge leaned forward, his voice cold and sharp. Agent Donovan, I have presided over this courtroom for decades, and I have never seen such blatant disrespect for the law, the uniform, or the Constitution. You have crossed a line. That cannot be ignored. Donovan's bravado cracked. Your Honor, I was just doing my job. He was interfering with federal enforcement. Alejandro's calm voice cut through his excuses. Doing your job doesn't mean putting your hands on innocent people. Doing your job doesn't mean letting prejudice guide your actions. I spent years defending this nation from enemies abroad, but it saddens me to see hatred and arrogance growing within its own institutions. The words hung heavy in the air. The families in the gallery nodded, whispering to one another. The Latino father fighting deportation looked at Alejandro with gratitude, as if this man's courage had given him a voice. The judge gestured to the bailiff. Take Agent Donovan into custody, pending review by the Department of Justice. This court cannot function if federal agents think they can behave like common bullies. The bailiff stepped forward, but Donovan panicked. Wait, this isn't fair. You don't understand. Alejandro stood, his tall frame commanding attention. What don't we understand, Agent? That you think people like me don't belong here, that you can humiliate Latinos and face no consequences. His voice deepened, carrying the weight of his years of service. Let me make something clear. I have bled for this country. I have lost brothers in arms defending the very freedoms you trample on in this courtroom. And unlike you, I don't get to pick and choose who I protect. I defended Americans of every race, every religion, every background. That is what it means to wear the uniform. The audience broke into quiet applause, silence only when the judge raised his hand. Donovan's eyes darted desperately, looking for anyone to back him up. But even his ICE colleagues shifted uncomfortably, unwilling to defend his actions. Finally, Donovan dropped his head. His arrogance dissolved into fear. I didn't know. I didn't know who you were. Alejandro stepped closer, his voice steady, but cutting. You shouldn't need to know my resume to treat me with respect. I shouldn't have to be a Navy SEAL for you to recognize my humanity. The truth hit Donovan harder than any slap could. He was being stripped not just of authority, but of dignity. The hearing reconvened later that afternoon. Donovan, now seated in the back under guard, looked like a man awaiting his own trial. The judge allowed Alejandro to take the stand, not just as a witness, but as someone whose voice now carried the weight of lived truth. Alejandro began slowly, looking at the gallery, then at the family he had come to defend. I joined the Navy at 18, right out of high school. I wanted to serve the country my parents worked so hard to be part of. My mother cleaned houses. My father worked construction until his body gave out. They believed in America. They believed that if I wore the uniform, I would be judged not by the color of my skin, but by my dedication to the flag. The courtroom was spellbound. Alejandro continued, his voice steady. I became a SEAL because I refused to give up. The training broke many men stronger than me. But I survived because I had grit I learned from watching my parents struggle every day. I carried that grit through combat deployments in Afghanistan, Iraq, and places I can't even name. Publicly, I carried it when I buried brothers who didn't come home. He paused, his eyes momentarily clouded with grief. And today, I carried it into this courtroom, not as a soldier, but as a citizen, because when a family is being torn apart, and when people like Agent Donovan abuse their power, it isn't just their fight, it's our fight. The family's attorney wiped away tears. The judge leaned back, visibly moved, even the bailiff's stoic expression softened. Alejandro turned to face Donovan directly. You struck me, Agent, but the truth is, you struck everyone who's ever worn a uniform like mine. You struck every Latino who ever dreamed that this country could be their home, and you struck the Constitution you swore to uphold. Donovan tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He looked small now, like a man stripped of his shield. The judge exhaled deeply. Lieutenant Commander Cruz, on behalf of this court, and frankly, on behalf of this country, I apologize for what you endured today. No citizen, least of all one who has sacrificed as much as you, should ever experience such treatment. This court will take steps to ensure that justice is served. The gallery erupted into applause. The Latino family hugged each other tightly, knowing they were witnessing something larger than their own case. Alejandro had turned the spotlight from their struggle to a national one, the demand for dignity and respect. By the end of the day, Donovan's career was in shambles. Internal affairs had been notified. The Department of Justice was launching an inquiry. The news media had caught wind of the story, with reporters waiting outside the courthouse. But the most shocking moment came when Donovan, escorted out in handcuffs, stopped in front of Alejandro. His eyes were wet, his voice cracking. Lieutenant, please, I made a mistake. I didn't know. Alejandro studied him, silent for a long moment. Then he said, I don't need your apology. The people you've humiliated, the families you've torn apart, they deserve your apology. Not me. Donovan's lips trembled, but no words came. The bailiff pulled him away. The once feared ICE agent was now just a disgraced man begging for forgiveness he didn't know how to give. The judge ruled in favor of the Latino family, halting their deportation proceedings. This court will not stand by while prejudice masquerades as law enforcement, he declared. As the family wept with joy, Alejandro quietly gathered his things. He didn't stay for praise or recognition. He walked out of the courthouse the same way he had walked in, shoulders back, head high, steady and unshaken. Reporters swarmed him outside. Commander Cruz, Commander, can we get a statement? He paused briefly, then gave them the only statement he would. Justice isn't about who has the most power. It's about who has the courage to stand up for what's right. And with that, he walked away, leaving behind a legacy that would echo in that courthouse forever. Inside, Donovan's career was over. Outside, the Latino family embraced their children, free to build their lives in peace. And Alejandro Cruz, warrior, son of immigrants, Navy SEAL, reminded America of the truth it too often forgets. Respect is not earned by fear, but by honor.